Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a murder investigation is launched after the death of a teenager in Glasgow. Aman Tekli was found seriously injured on a street in the St George's Cross area on Wednesday night. He's been described as a friendly and much-loved young man.
Doesn't it feel quite real when we're talking about Aman in the past tense, and you do just expect just to see him.
Also in tonight's programme, a warning that the NHS is still failing to learn from its mistakes after a rise in serious patient safety incidents.
In one of our meetings, the medical director, quite ill-tempered, actually shouted at us, "Why don't you just sue us?"
Fraser Morton's son died nearly 10 years ago after a series of errors from staff. The BBC secures live television rights for Scotland men's international football matches.
Coming up in the sport, it's hard to explain the words of Cyril Dessers after Rangers produce more European magic during a season of ups and downs.
There we are. She's flat.
And Elaine C Smith is honoured with the ancient freedom of Glasgow. Now she gets to graze her cattle on Glasgow Green. Hello, I'm Sally Magnuson. Welcome to Friday's programme. A murder investigation's been launched after a 15-year-old boy died in a Glasgow street. Aman Tekli was described as a friendly and much-loved young man by his head teacher, who said he was bright and showed great promise. Aman was originally from Eritrea and had lived in Glasgow for several years, having recently been granted right to remain status in the UK. Hope Webb reports.
My name's Aman, I'm 15 years old.
Aman Tekli has been described as a cool and laid-back teenager who was a role model in his local community. He was originally from Eritrea but had lived in Glasgow for a number of years, and now his sister is paying tribute. Delina Tekli travelled from London when she heard of her brother's death. She spoke to us but didn't want to be filmed.
I'm still in denial. I don't know, but he's a really sweet person. He was really kind, he was so bright. When he comes into the house, he makes everyone happy. It's terrible. My dad, I don't know how to explain it. He's devastated. We're all devastated. It was shocking. We didn't expect this to happen.
Investigations are still underway at Clarendon Street, where Aman was found fatally injured. Police were called there at 10:30 on Wednesday night, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Now officers have launched a murder inquiry.
Aman,
Jamie O'Neill is a youth worker who supported Aman.
when you walked into a room, you would smile when you seen him. He would always give you the impression that when you were worried about him or you didn't hear it from him for a few days, he would tell you that, "Oh, don't worry, I'm fine." He'd send you a voice note and say, "Don't worry about me." That's the last thing he'd said to me.
Aman attended St Thomas Aquinas Secondary School in Jordan Hill. The head teacher today released a statement saying this is a tragic situation. She describes Aman as a friendly and much-loved young man who was interested in music and the media. The statement goes on to say he was bright and showed great promise. The school is continuing to support its pupils. Police say this was an isolated incident, but believe the answers lie within the local community. Anyone with any information that may help the investigation is being encouraged to come forward.
And Hope is at the scene for us in Glasgow this evening. What's the latest, Hope, with the investigation? It's such a sad story.
Absolutely. Well, I've spoken to many people that knew Aman, and it's clear that he had a large circle of friends and was described as a big brother character to many young people that he knew. The Eritrean community in Glasgow is small, but it's fair to say that they are reeling from the news of Aman's death. It's less than 48 hours since the 15-year-old was found seriously injured here on Clarendon Street, and the news of his loss is now starting to sink in. The police tape cordon has been lifted here, and a number of flowers have been left in tribute to Aman. I read one note on a bunch of flowers that said, "Look at the stars, look how they shine for you." As for the investigation, well, ultimately Police Scotland has said its #1 priority is to find any individuals connected to Amin's death. Officers say they're keeping an open mind and they're following multiple lines of inquiry as well. They have stressed, though, there is no wider risk to the public at this time. A major investigation portal has also been set up. The hope is that people will come forward and share information anonymously. Officers are looking for dashcam footage from doorbells, for example, that can be shared. Evidence that ultimately will lead officers to setting up and understanding the circumstances that led to Amin's death.
Hope Webb in Glasgow, thank you very much. A father whose baby son died after a series of hospital errors almost 10 years ago has warned that the NHS is still failing to learn from its mistakes. Fraser Morton's son Lucas was one of 6 baby deaths at Crosshouse Hospital in Kilmarnock, classified as unnecessary. More than 800 safety incidents were reported in the NHS in 2024, with their rate having steadily increased in the past 4 years. Andrew Picken reports.
Fraser Morton's son Lucas died at Crosshouse Hospital in Kilmarnock nearly a decade ago following a series of errors by staff. But Fraser was forced to campaign for years to get answers on his son's death.
Deny, deflect, delay, that's our go-to tactic. In one of our meetings, the medical director, quite ill-tempered, actually shouted at us, "Why don't you just sue us?" She preferred us to sue him rather than answer difficult questions.
Back in 2016, Fraser allowed our cameras to film in what would have been Lucas's nursery. But he's not been back in the room since.
You're not living properly. You know, you've got a room in your home that you can't go in. I can focus on the nuts and bolts, processes, procedures, failings, successes. I can't speak about the emotional side of things.
It's still too raw.
Too sore.
A BBC investigation into the Crosshouse maternity deaths highlighted Fraser's push for changes to how safety mistakes across the NHS are reviewed. Health boards now report how many adverse events happen on their watch. In 2020, a total of 567 reviews for the most serious of incidents were commissioned by health boards. Last year, it was up to 803. But there are concerns that not every incident is being properly investigated. Alison Fisher got an apology from NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde after the birth of her daughter Fia at the Princess Royal Hospital hit a number of problems, including missing equipment.
It's my first child. It's supposed to be a really special moment, and I just want to understand what happened.
Fia is now a healthy 4-year-old, but Alison took her case to the Scottish Public Service Ombudsman, which ruled the hospital had failed to provide reasonable care during labour, though it found the pair were not put at risk.
You kind of sit with that and you think, okay, maybe I'm being hard on them, maybe I'm bashing them, maybe I'm being paranoid. But after 2.5 years, you learn you're not being paranoid. You need to trust your instincts.
A request for the case to be considered as a retrospective significant adverse event was turned down. The NHS Watchdog is revamping the adverse events system to improve learning from incidents and give patients and families more involvement in the process.
We are aware that through speaking to some people that litigation is not a route that they want to take, and it's really unfortunate. We've sometimes heard from people that was a route that they chose to go down because they felt the defensiveness of the health board, and we hope with our new framework that we'll see real change in that.
The Watchdog says the pandemic has slowed progress, but improvement is on the way. Fraser says he's still waiting to see the changes he was promised. Andrew Picken, reporting Scotland.
Matches featuring Scotland men's football team will be back on free-to-air TV after the BBC agreed a deal to become the main broadcaster. Starting with games against Greece this month, all Scotland matches will be on the BBC in the run-up to the 2026 World Cup. Our sports news correspondent Chris McLaughlin is at the National Stadium, Hampden Park, for us this evening. How significant is this, Chris?
Yeah, significant, Sally. Significant for the fans, significant for those who've been campaigning for free-to-air for some time. Significant also, it should be said, for the BBC. Now, broadly speaking, since 2008, Scotland fans looking to watch their side on TV have had to subscribe. Now, for the first time in 20 years, all 4 Home Nations matches are free to air. Now, what does it mean for the Scotland fans? It means 14 live matches, including Nations League, also at World Cup qualifiers. What we don't know, Sally, is how much this is costing the BBC. I did ask. They say this is a commercial deal. They don't discuss commercial deals. What is clear, though, is this is something they've had their eye on for some time.
We've been working on this for a while. Last year we were opportunistic and we managed to buy some rights to friendlies with Northern Ireland and Finland. So it's fantastic to have them. And we can always see the appetite for live football from our audience. So to be able to secure this deal, we're just absolutely thrilled.
There's been a lot of political pressure here, hasn't there, Chris?
Yeah, a lot of pressure from Holyrood, cross-party, it should be said, and from Westminster. I am told this has been a pretty tricky path to get to where we are. Yes, delicate conversations between the BBC and the Scottish FA here at Hampden, but also between the UK and Scottish governments. I think it's worth reminding people, though, Sally, that the real winners in all of this are the Scotland fans, who may be forgiven in recent years for being confused about where to watch Scotland games. Sky, Viaplay, YouTube, ITV, sometimes BBC. Now they have that certainty that the games will be free to air until 2026 at least.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Some of the day's other stories now. Tributes have been paid to a Rangers fan who was hit by 2 cars while crossing a road in Istanbul. Christopher Potter from Glasgow died in the early hours of yesterday before the side's Europa League match with Fenerbahce. The Ibrox club said it was devastated by Mr Potter's death. Police have launched a murder inquiry after a man was found dead at a property in Glasgow. The body of 55-year-old James Jarvis was found in Moner Street in the city's Postle Park area early on Wednesday morning. Police Scotland have appealed for public assistance. A 16-year-old boy is fighting for his life in hospital after the e-scooter he was riding collided with a car in Midlothian. The crash happened at around 10:30 this morning in Newmills Road in Dalkeith. Police say the boy has been taken to Edinburgh Royal Infirmary where his condition is critical. Officers are appealing for witnesses. Councillors have agreed to build Mull's new high school in Tobermory. The decision means most pupils in the south of the island will still have to travel to the mainland by ferry to attend school in Oban and stay overnight in hostels. The proposed £43 million campus will be built less than a mile from the island's current high school in Tobermory. Some parents in the south of Mull have called for a more central location. More than 600 students at Scottish universities have been accused of misusing artificial intelligence in the last year. That's a tiny percentage, of course, of the total number of students studying here, but universities are taking steps to address the issue. Our Science and Innovation correspondent, Laura Goodwin, has more.
Now, depending on when you last wrote an essay, it might have involved hours poring over books, or perhaps you searched for journals online. Well, now there is a new resource, generative AI, and to give you a sense of what it can do, I have asked it to write me an essay on a certain subject. I've given it a word count, and within a few moments, it's done. And this poses a challenge for universities.
The most high-profile concern has been around misconduct and cheating. I think one of my main concerns is the way in which there's increasing research which shows that it enables a kind of cognitive offloading. Instead of reading a complex text and analysing it and summarising the key points, it's much easier to put a complex text into generative AI.
Generative AI does have benefits as a tool for planning essays, deciphering complex texts, and can also help students who are dyslexic or for whom English is their second language. But it isn't foolproof and it can make mistakes.
If I don't understand a certain question, so I can copy-paste a certain phrase that I found and ask ChatGPT, for example, Could you please explain this in simpler terms so I can understand it?
Hearing from my friends, some of the best prompts that they use is, now explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old or a 14-year-old.
Sometimes if you search for cases, then they don't really exist, and almost even if you do find cases that do exist, AI kind of gives you like lack of context.
Some universities have invested in detection software to help spot excessive use of AI in coursework. Up to 5 students at both Robert Gordon and Glasgow universities received the first expulsions for misuse of AI in the last year. Across all Scottish universities, cases of misuse were up by more than 300 between 2023 and 2024. In less than 3 years, generative AI has flipped the conversation on technology and education. There is no going back, but universities face decisions on how to go forward. Laura Goodwin, Reporting Scotland.
Let's see what News at 7 is doing tonight. What you got for us, Amy?
Hi, Sally. Packed programme as always. We're going to have much more on that decision on the new high school in Mull, as you mentioned, the location of which has proved quite divisive. Some families would like to have seen the campus be built more centrally or split, so we're going to have much more on that. And also after the sad news earlier this week of a sperm whale that died after being caught up in fishing gear, we're asking an expert if anything else can actually be done to protect whales from the dangers of fishing gear. And as well as that, we're going to be meeting the Scottish band called Dead Pony, who have quite the year ahead of them, Sally. They are touring with a very big rock band. That is all I'm going to tell you.
OK, look forward to it. Thanks very much indeed, Amy. Tonight's main news again. Police have launched a murder investigation after the death of a teenager in Glasgow. Amen Tekle was found seriously injured on a street on Wednesday night. He's been described as a friendly and much-loved young man.
And still to come in the sport, the SFA's head of referees say Daisen Maeda's late equaliser for Celtic against Hibs, which was ruled out by VAR, should have stood.
Doll in Rabsy Nesbitt, Christine in Two Doors Down. Now Elaine C Smith can add another role to her repertoire. Free Woman of the City of Glasgow is the highest tribute that can be given to a citizen of the city. Among the perks is the right to graze your cows on common land. Useful, obviously. Our reporter Gillian Sharp went to meet her.
There we are. She's flat.
Definitely a first for Elaine C Smith, nominally in charge of cows at Glasgow Green. Grazing is just one of the rights which comes with the award.
I'm allowed to fish in the Clyde. My husband's a fly fisherman, so he'll be happy about that, or a bit angry that I've got the rights. The most important, I think, is that I'm allowed to bear arms for the city. I take that in a contemporary sense of defending the honour of Glasgow, which I'm more than happy to always do.
Oh, it's your sale, Ella. Oh, it's your sale, Mary.
Glasgow and Scotland's been at the heart of a decades-long career, now receiving the city's highest honour.
And they gave me the keys of the city.
Sir Billy Connolly was also recognised as a free man, and that's the title, even for Elaine C Smith.
When this was first bestowed on citizens here, that generally it was men who had money and power. So I understand why the title is the way that it is, but I do regard myself as a free woman, and in the world that we live in, being a free woman is not anything to be taken for granted. All I think of are all the women I know and from history in this city who should have been given this award, and so I do feel I'm standing on the shoulders of giants.
This is a Glasgow award, and for Elaine C Smith, that makes it different.
I'm not a great one for honours. You know, the only dame I'll ever be is a panto dame, I think. I'm more than happy with that. But this honour, actually, when I read the letter, I cried because it was so significant and special, this city where I live. What's your name?
She's keen to use the award to further charity work.
Humour's a necessity here, because this is a tough city with lots of problems. It's a beautiful city. Glasgow is all of those things, and that's what makes it a fabulous place for me.
Gillian Sharp, Reporting Scotland.
Good on you, Elaine.
Right.
Lewis is here. Rangers last night, eh?
I know, what a night that was, Sally. I'm sure fans are still trying to get over it. Thanks very much. Cheers now. Hello there. Well, Rangers striker Cyril Dessers says it's quite hard to explain the club's inconsistent form this season after spearheading Barry Ferguson's side to a memorable 3-1 win away to Fenerbahce in the Europa League last night. The result against Jose Mourinho's side, that many consider to be one of the strongest left in the last 16, comes on the back of 3 domestic defeats in a row at Ibrox to Motherwell, St Mirren and Championship side Queen's Park. Dessers opened the scoring, created the second and had 2 ruled out by narrow offside calls.
We've been a team of ups and downs, especially in the league, but I think in Europe we showed a very consistent form, and sometimes it's hard to explain, but I think the football in Europe suits us a little bit more at this moment. But yeah, we have to take confidence from this as well and try to find the consistency and try to start doing this as well in the league.
There's no way that I'm getting carried away here. This is only half-time in the tie. Fenerbahce are a very good team who I think are one of the favourites to win this competition, and also they've got one of the best managers it's ever been, so they're going to be hurting.
So while results this season have been difficult to predict, big performances in the Europa League have been rather commonplace for the Ibrox club. Just look at some of these results in recent seasons. They've been there and done it before against top Turkish opponents in the form of Galatasaray 4 seasons ago. Then there was that remarkable 2020-22 campaign where Giovanni van Bronckhorst led them to the final, getting past the likes of Borussia Dortmund and RB Leipzig in the process. And then over the last couple of seasons, there's been some impressive results on the road. But will poor recent home form affect the mood heading into next week's second leg?
Football just has a funny way of turning, doesn't it? Because going into last night, I think there's still quite a lot of disengagement with this season, especially after the weekend. But now there's a very realistic chance that Rangers could make the last 8. So I think the atmosphere will feed onto the pitch, and the atmosphere will set itself given the magnitude of what could happen next Thursday.
The Scottish FA head of refereeing, Willie Collum, says Celtic and Dundee United's disallowed goals in Scottish Premiership defeats by Hibernian last month should have stood. Daisen Maeda thought he had levelled for Celtic following Alistair Johnston's cutback at Easter Road back in February, but a VAR review resulted in a goal kick being awarded. The ball was ruled to have gone out of play before the right-back's delivery in a game Celtic ultimately lost 2-1. A few days later at Tannadice, and with the score at 1-1, Sam Dalby was ruled to have used an arm in this disallowed goal against Hibs, who went on to win the game 3-1. To the Scottish Cup now, where Jimmy Tilleen's Aberdeen are one of 8 remaining teams dreaming of lifting the famous old trophy at Hampden in May. They face a Queen's Park team still on a high from beating Rangers in the previous round. Skipper Graham Shinney is in line to make his 600th first-team appearance across 4 clubs for Aberdeen's tie against the Spiders tomorrow. He and his manager have been involved in the game long enough to know knockout football brings an element of danger.
Cup games is always intense, it's always small margins. We have to be really sharp, we have to be ready. We are playing at home at Pittodrie again with our supporters. We have a really strong second half last game, and I think we're improving every week now, and looking forward to the game. But they have done really well. They are a good team and a good manager, and let's be ready for that.
And that match at Pittodrie kicks off at lunchtime, but the first of the quarter-finals gets underway about an hour from now. Hearts taking on Dundee at Tynecastle, a tough one for Tony Docherty's men, considering they lost 6-0 to Hearts last month in the league. On Sunday, in-form Hibs travel to take on the holders before Livingston and St Johnstone meet in West Lothian on Monday for a place in the semis. To rugby now, and while neither Scotland or Wales can lift this, co-captain Finn Russell has faced down his critics ahead of their penultimate Six Nations match. The Bath fly half missed all 3 of his goal kicks in the agonising defeat away to England 2 weeks ago, including the chance to win the Calcutta Cup with a conversion in the 79th minute. Ahead of tomorrow's match, he insisted he's unfazed by any criticism from outside his inner circle.
When you miss a kick to win it right at the very end, that's again part of the job, and that's kind of why you do it, to get these chances, these opportunities. And I'm not too stressed about what's been said about my game, as long as I'm thinking and happy with it myself, then that's kind of all that matters. And to be fair to me, I go back to my family and friends, and they're the ones that are kind of the first to either pick me up or put me down, either way, depending on how it goes. So I think my dad was saying like unlucky with the kick kind of thing, but you played really well overall. So for me, that means more than what others say. So.
And we round off the sport tonight with a mention of Glasgow's Neil Gourlay at the European Indoor Athletics Championships in the Netherlands. Gourlay won his 1500 metres heat last night and goes again this evening in the final in Apeldoorn. Very best of luck to Neil tonight. And that's the Sports Alley, a bit of everything for you tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Lewis. Let's go straight to Chris to find out what kind of weekend we've got in store.
Pretty decent, actually, Sally. Yes, some sunshine and some warmth. Shetland was the place to be today with the blue sky and sunshine, but many more of us seeing some sunshine this weekend. Yes. Thank you very much indeed. Good evening to you. Yes, it was a pretty decent day across northern parts of the country today. That's where the best of the sunshine was. Central and southern Scotland, rather cloudy and certainly wet with outbreaks of rain at times, which were on the heavy side on occasion. That cloud and rain now working its way northwards as we head overnight and turning more persistent through the early hours across northern parts of the mainland. In the north, 4 or 5 Celsius as the low. Further south, 7 to 9 Celsius, generally light winds. Now, this weekend, we have a weather front in the north, bringing some rain for the far north, but for much of the country, it's dry. We're in between the cold front and the warm front, so warm sector conditions. That means it's mild for most, if not very mild. Let's take a look at first thing tomorrow, and you can see that warm front across the north, cloudy and wet, and you've got the rain all day, I'm afraid. Elsewhere, dry. After a cloudy start, that cloud will thin and break. There'll be some brightness and then some sunshine developing into the afternoon, and it will feel really quite nice. Here's a snapshot mid-afternoon. West Central Scotland and the south, anything up to around 17 degrees, but generally around 14 or 15. Right on the east coast, it will be cooler, 9 or 10 degrees. Still cloudy across parts of the Northwest Highlands in towards Skye and the Hebrides and up towards Orkney and Shetland. Some rain still with you there in Shetland and 7 degrees in Lerwick. Not great. Into Saturday night, that cloud and rain in the north pulling away for a time. Elsewhere, dry with clear skies, and those clear skies will allow some mist and fog to form. And that's with us first thing on Sunday through much of the central lowlands. It will lift probably by around about late morning. And then for much of the day on Sunday, for much of the mainland, it's bright and sunny once again. Temperatures in places into the mid-teens. Cooler further north with that rain still with us. And once again, cool around some North Sea coasts. And next week, it definitely is a cooling trend. Let me show you what's happening. We've got an area of high pressure situated towards the northwest, and that means a northerly wind, never a warm direction. That'll feed in a few showers. Those could be wintry across the highest hills and mountains. But it's the air mass that is key, indicated by the blues on the chart there. And of course, it's going to be a cold air mass, so it will be turning much colder. That's what it means in numbers. Rather than 16 or 17 degrees, 6 or 7 degrees in the north, further south, 8 or 9. So chilly by day, although a lot of dry weather around, and certainly chilly by night. We'll see a return to fairly widespread frost right across the country and a cold north wind. However, this weekend for most, pretty decent, Sally.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Laura McKeever will be here with your late news at around 10:30 tonight. But until then, from everyone on the team, do enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.